You didn't miss anything. So that's basically where we have gotten to. I think for the most part, you might even be slightly ahead. Yeah, I mean, why don't we just start right in? We actually still have to finish off where we ended off last week. We basically completed update. We were able to update a user. They were updated in the database. Yippee skippy. The pieces that we didn't complete, I believe, was the destroy. So we haven't built in the destroy functionality. I think we're also missing some links because in order to get to edit, we've been just editing the URL. We're going to create a link so that we don't have to edit the URL. It's kind of a weird way to get there, right? So this is loading up. Why don't we open up WAMP? I mean, that's a good place to start. Let it go green. And then we'll navigate to localhost, comp-1006. And we'll click on our lesson 5 to open it up. So there we go. So right now, anything we want to do with users, we have to actually log in because we have no access to users. I believe that we can actually modify and work with users that are ourselves. So if we log in as a non-administrative user, we can edit our own profile, which is good. But we can also edit other profiles if we log in as an administrative user. So last week we created administrative accounts, but I don't really care which one you log in with. Just log in with any of your accounts that you have. Having a new one called admin.test.com. Here we go. So right now, if I want to go to the edit, I actually have to come up here in the URL, double click on show and change that word to edit. We're going to make a link that shows up in this little spot right here so that all we have to do is click the link and then that will take us to the edit page, right? And then once we've completed the destroy for the user, we'll have another little link there. We'll click on that link to destroy the user. Very simple, very easy. We're even going to type in a very tiny amount of JavaScript to basically confirm whether or not we actually want to destroy the user. So. All right, so let's start by opening up our IDE, clicking on our W, navigating to our www directory, going into comp1006, grabbing the folder we're working in, and dropping it into our IDE, which will open it up in the IDE. So this is the code where we've been editing. So the page we're going to want to edit to add the links in is users show.php. So we want to open up the show.php page, and this is where we're going to add our links. All right. So if we look at the structure of our page, we have this big avatar on the left-hand side, and then we have the little table here that kind of shows all the information. I want to put the links just below the table. So if you look at the structure of the code, there's our table right there. I can actually collapse my table. So this doesn't delete it, it just collapses the code so that it's easier to see things. I just bring my cursor over to the left-hand side, click it, and the table nicely collapses. I'm going to put my cursor at the end of the closing tag on the table, hit enter a couple of times, and I'm going to create a new element here with some links in it. And all I really need it to be is a block element. It doesn't matter if it's a div, paragraph, article. I mean, an article would be a terrible choice, but it really just needs to be a block element. That's all I really care about. I'm just going to use a paragraph. And incidentally, in VS Code, if you type the letter P, for example, right, VS Code comes with Emmet installed, and Emmet will actually fill out your HTML for you. All you have to do is type the letter and either hit tab or hit enter, not that key, hit enter, and it will fill out the tag for you, which makes your life a little easier. I mean, the P tag isn't so bad, but we need to create some anchor links. If you type A and hit enter, it even actually spits in the attribute, the href attribute for you. Makes it very simple. What's that? Yeah, div will spit out the div tag. If you want to add classes, say you want to add the class attribute, you can say div dot and then type in whatever the class name is, and it will put it out for you. Or, because Emmet assumes all tags you're going to create by default are divs, if you do dot in your class name and hit enter, it will create a div with the class in it, because it just assumes every tag's a div. All right, so the href, we're going to add the address in it to link to our edit page, right? So let's add in our inline echo statement so that we can bring in our base path, / users, not show, edit.php, !ID equals. And what we need to do is bring in the user ID that we want to edit. The good news is show already has a user. We've already retrieved a user. We have one available to us. So we just have to simply reference that variable. So we'll do another inline echo statement, user ID, like so. So that's what you're typing. And so if we go look at a user, their profile, this edit link will change to that user's ID so that we can edit them. Whatever profile we look at, this link will dynamically change its ID association to that profile. So nice and easy, nice and quick to get to that thing. Now, because it's an anchor tag, we definitely want to give it a label, right? So I'm going to split apart the opening and closing a tag, and I'm going to type in edit. So that'll be our label. And then I'm also going to add an icon. I'm going to put an icon in here that we can look at. In week 1 or week 2 or week 3, I can't remember, we added in Font Awesome, which gives us little icons, right? Whole icon library that we have access to. So we're going to use one of those icons right now. I'm going to type in i.fa.fa-pencil and hit tab. So i.fa.fa-pencil, and then when you hit tab, it will actually write the I tag for you, create the class attribute, and fill it out with all of those class information. And so what that's going to do is it's going to put a little pencil icon beside our edit for us. And that's coming from the Font Awesome library. If you're curious where we included that, that's in the header.html file that we created like 3 weeks ago. What do you mean? You can put edit beside it. Yeah, that's totally optional. Yeah. If you do put edit below it or above it, what's interesting is HTML will bring this line automatically up here, but it'll actually put a space between it. Yeah. So it doesn't actually butt it right up against. It's just something, depending on the browser. So don't rely on that because the browser does make that decision. So that's literally all we're going to do in this file. In our show.php, if you refresh, you should be able to see these changes that we've made, right? So let's jump over to the show, hit Control-R on your keyboard, and now you should have an edit button with a little pencil beside it. If you click it, it should go to register a new user and populate it with that user's details. So now we actually have a link to get there, and we no longer have to edit the URL. Yeah. All right. Any questions about that? Yeah, so the admin can edit any user. So if you go to the users and view all users, let's click on Donnie. We have access to an edit button here. If we click the edit button, we can see Donnie Mannequin, right? Let's change his name to Umberhoff, and I'll submit it. Successfully updated this profile. His name is Umberhoff. Everything is good. Now, one thing that's bad though, see this wonderful broken image? If I click load image, it doesn't work. If I hit function F12, The console says I have a failed to load resource. If I look at this line a little better, it's giving me a status 404. I'll check my network tab and see which one is actually causing the problem. There it is, right there. Failed to load the image 0. Yeah, I don't care about that. It's fine. We're running locally anyways. If I inspect, our image source is equal to 0. So the avatar that I was supposed to put into the database didn't get put into the database correctly when we did our update. Somehow we have damaged the link going into the database. We can verify that by going into localhost, phpMyAdmin, logging in, clicking on comp 1006, clicking on the users table, and if you look at underneath the avatar column, every so often you'll see a 0 in there where we've updated these users and they're missing their avatar. So incidentally, I found out why before class. If we go to our update.php page, the reason is it has to do with our binding parameters, right? So our binding parameter says, what placeholder is it that you want me to add the value to? What is the value you want me to add? And what data type is that value? Can you see our flaw? So this is the placeholder. That looks fine. It's an int. So what PHP will do, if you give it something that isn't a number, it just turns it into a 0 and shoves it in. Well, that doesn't work for us. 0 is not the avatar link. So all we need to do is change that from param int to param string and save. And then that will make it so that when we save our avatar, we'll actually have the avatar link properly. That's under update.php on line 90-ish. All right, let's jump back to our browsers. Obviously, if we look at this user's profile, if I refresh, nothing's going to happen because it hasn't changed the database yet. So what I can do is click edit on Mr. Umber here. And for some reason, it kicked me out altogether. Let me log out and log back in. I'm not sure why it kicked me out. There we go. Let's go to the Umber Haas, edit. All I have to do is just hit submit. That's it. And the image will come back because we auto-generate the image and update. Incidentally, notice that when I edited it, I was logged in as an administrator. My users has disappeared, which means for some reason, I'm no longer an administrator. I know what's happened. What has happened is I've replaced my session details with this user's details, and I've removed my role. So I am missing my role as an administrator. So essentially what I've done is I've edited this user and then became them, which is kind of crappy because we don't want to be them. We still want to have our administrative privileges. So I'm guessing underneath our, if we scroll down here, yep, sure enough, this is where our flaw is. We have this set as $session equals user. And the reason why we did this is we said when the user gets updated, we want to make sure that all of their details gets put into the session so that their newer details are a part of the session. That is a good approach. The problem is we only want to do this if the user is the current user, right? So the user that's logged in and the user that edit are the same thing. So all we have to really do is wrap this in an if condition that basically says if underscore session user ID is equal to $user ID, then go ahead and execute that. Otherwise, it'll ignore it and we'll move on past. Troubleshoot, you stupid thing. What's going on here? Strangest thing is I have internet on the Mac side, but I don't have internet on the Windows side. Oh, the DNS server's not responding. That's interesting. That is a issue with Georgian. All right, whatever. All right, anybody still typing that out before I move on from that screen? No? Okay, so let's go back to our browser. I'm going to have to log out and log back in again so that we're our own user. So I'm going to log in as an administrator. I'm going to go to the user's profiles, view all users. I'm going to click on Elmore Christ, and I'm going to edit Elmore. And I'm going to call him Smellmore. And then I'm going to submit. And notice my users is still there, right? However, this image is still broken. Why is this image still broken? That's interesting. That image shouldn't be broken. We just fixed that. Failed to load resource, error name not resolved. fcasper@gmail.com. Okay. That's fine. Let's look under the network tab and see what happened here. Refresh. Oh, I know why. Huh. I think what's happening is because I have no internet access, I can't get my image. Are you guys getting an image when you save? Okay, so it is working. I just don't have any internet because my internet's all loopy right now. All right, so our edit works. We know how to edit our user. Everything seems to be functioning correctly. Last check I want to just make sure of is that we don't have that a regular user, like Carrie here, if they log in, I want to make sure that they can't edit somebody else. So let's click on edit. Well, that's not a good sign. They can't even edit themselves. So they should be able to at least edit themselves. At the very minimum, they should be able to edit their own profile. So let's go see why that is an issue. I'm guessing that's at the top of our update.php, where we were doing a check. Oh no, so that'll be in our edit.php actually. So we have the check if auth and not admin, redirect to base path. Well, that's not entirely true. It shouldn't be if auth and not admin. What it should be is if you're not authenticated, right, then you should definitely be redirected. If you're editing somebody else who is not you and you're not an administrator, then you should be redirected. So it's actually two possible scenarios. So why don't we split them up so they're a little easier to understand. So if not authenticated, let's redirect you. And then we'll write another one underneath that will also do a redirect to the base path. Only this one will say if $_session user ID does not equal $_get ID and you're not an admin. So it's a bit of a mouthful. But basically the idea is if your logged in user, the user you are, does not match the ID that you're trying to request, and you're not an administrator, which means you're editing somebody else and you don't have the credentials to do that, then we're going to kick you off the page. So fairly simple, not really all that elaborate logic. And we could write it as one if condition if we wanted to, but you would have to separate them. You would have to wrap that, and then that would have to be separated, and you have to basically say if not off, or if session user ID does not match get ID and you're not an admin, then redirect, but it becomes a little harder to read. Sometimes it's better just to do it in a pattern that's a little simpler to read, right? Wish my internet would come back. Give everybody a few seconds to finish writing that out. I also find long lines like that are prone to syntax errors when people are copying them because it's just so ridiculously long. Like, yeah. All right, are we good? Anybody still typing? Okay, I'll give you a second. Yeah. Once we know this works, we'll write our destroy. Our destroy will actually be very simple. I was going to make it more complex because I believe I told you guys at the beginning of the course that when we're doing reading type stuff, we use get. We use get for any readable type stuff. So our index pages, our show pages, we use get, right? If it's stuff we're going to mutate or modify or destroy, we use a form. It becomes a little trickier with destroy because we don't have a view. So we're not actually submitting anything to anywhere, right? All we're doing is clicking a link. So that link would have to be a form. It would have to look like a link, but it would have to be a form. And I find that tends to kind of confuse people a little bit. Best practice is definitely to use a form for destroying. That is best practice. However, we're going to use a link. Give me a thumbs up when you're ready. You ready? All right. Let's go over here. Let's refresh this page. Click edit. Boom. Eleanor can edit herself. I guess it's not Eleanor, it's Elnora. Elnora is going to try to change to a different user. She took hacking 101. So she's going to change it to 14. I'm a hacker. Dope, right? Nope, she failed. Her hack was not successful. She got kicked back to the base page. Let's log out. I'm going to log back in as my administrator. It would help if I use the correct password. And I just want to make sure that Humphrey can still edit other users. So he's going to edit Elnora. Edit. Yep, he sure can. And he's going to change her name to Smelnora. Why not? And then he's going to submit it. Yep, now her name is Smelnora. All right. So our edit, update, all work. Yay us. We've made it to another point in our CRUD operations. We have create, we have read, we have update. Now we just need delete, and then we're done CRUD for our first resource. And then we're going to do it 2 more times for 2 brand new resources. Only we're going to do it in 2 weeks because we've only got like 3 weeks left. So we're going to move super quick. It won't be bad because we won't have to do as much authentication checks and all that type of stuff. Part of this is all because we have to validate everything we're doing because we're dealing with the inserting into our users, right? The parent-child resources we're going to create, they're all just string content. So all we have to do is sanitize the strings. It'll be super simple. Okay, cool. Let's add a destroy. So we have edit down here. I'm going to put a pipe character in between them, and we're going to add a destroy button down here as well. All right. So let's open up show.php again. You should already have it open, and you should be able to see your link down here. I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to type in a pipe character. And then I'm going to hit enter again. The pipe character, by the way, is next to your curly brace. It's like the backslash. Hold shift and hit the backslash, and it should create a pipe, straight pipe character. Okay, I'm going to do another A tag. And this one is going to be literally identical to the edit. So if you just want to copy the edit one, paste it in there and just change the word edit to destroy. Nope, nobody's talking to you, sorry. Go away. And then obviously we'll add the label of delete. We could add the label destroy if you want to, that's totally fine, but I think delete makes more sense. And then the icon we'll add for this one will be i.fa.fa trash. Is it trash? I think it might be trash. We'll find out. If it's not, we'll go look at the Font Awesome 4 cheat sheet, and we'll find the correct icon. So all this is going to do is actually point to our destroy.php. Our destroy.php is just going to be a script. That'll be it. It's like almost as if we created a link that pointed directly to create.php or update.php. It's like we were going to the script directly, not through the form, right? So that's essentially what we're doing here. We're going to go straight to the script. The script's going to use the get super global to grab the ID, and then we'll be able to find that user, check that the user exists. If they exist, we'll go ahead and delete them. Though we might even actually reduce it further from that because I don't even care if the user exists or not, actually. We'll just delete whatever user they ask for as long as they have permissions to delete that user. Really, that's all that matters. All right, so if you go ahead and save and then go to your show page, can anybody confirm that created a little trash can icon? Or is there nothing there? It did? Okay, cool. So we have the little trash can icon. That's awesome. That's font awesome, actually. That was corny. Have you tried the atomic beer from Flying Monkeys? Yeah. With like the grapefruit flavor? Yeah. It's so gross. Did you like it? Yeah. Oh, I didn't like the citrus. Like I would be fine if it was like an orange citrus, but grapefruit just was like, what the hell is that? I did not like that at all. I like their other beers. Like some of their other beers are really good. Just that one. That one was not a keen one. But... All right. Anybody still typing? Let's go look at our links. Control R. Yep. There's our pipe character. Now we have edit and delete, right? Obviously, if we click delete, we'll likely get a 404. Yep. Not found. Because we don't have a destroy.php page. So we can't go to destroy.php page, right? So let's go ahead and create destroy.php. Open up our sidebar here. Under users, right click on the user's file or folder, sorry, click new file and call this destroy.php. Okay? And hit enter. I don't know about you, but I really love blank files, like a clean slate. And it was funny because I had an epiphany a long time ago about code, right? I'm a very creative person. I like to draw. I like to do a lot of creative things. I like to craft on occasion. I like to do a lot of creative things, right? And I was talking to this one guy, and he's like, no. Programmers are analytical. They think with math minds, and they only do they're not creative people. They're very step process by process. But I don't think that's true. I think programmers are very creative people because we have to come up with solutions in order to solve whatever the problem is. And not all of us will come up with the solution for the same way, right? Like if I told you to draw a house, how you draw a house, Brittany, is not going to be the same as how Shane or Matt draws a house, right? They're going to be different. Like, they're not going to look exactly the same. Or how I draw a house, right? The same thing goes with code. Every one of us could have the same challenge and approach it completely different, like entirely. So to me, code, yeah, it's entirely creative. So when I hit a blank page like this, I like to collapse my sidebar. So it's just in the zen, right? It's that nice, clear zone. I have a fresh canvas ready for me to program some stuff, right? I love that. That's my favorite part. So then we just type it in. We're going to mucky it up a little bit by typing the PHP at the top, obviously. We're just going to, this PHP here is just a happy little accident. We'll just make that happy accident a little cloud. That's what it'll be. Just a little bit of cloud storage right there. My kids love that show. They watch it on, is it Netflix that they watch it on? Yeah, they watch it on Netflix. They'll watch like 3 hours straight of just Bob Ross. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I bet. The thing is that's cool, though, is nobody hates on the guy. No, that would be the worst. You would get, like, trash talked if you did, right? Like, that's it. Literally 5 minutes later, like, holy crap. It'd be really funny. All right. So the notes, speaking of approaching something in a different way, the notes, we're not going to do what the notes are doing. We're going to make this super simple because we're going to think about it a little bit more intelligently. I don't care if the user wants to destroy themselves. Don't give a damn. So if they attempt to destroy themselves, whether or not they exist in the database, I don't care. If the administrator wants to destroy some random ID, that's their problem. They've made that decision to do that. The only thing I care about is whether or not a user who is not an administrator is attempting to destroy somebody else. That we need to stop, right? So we do that simply by just saying if, and we'll do this in 2 steps as well. If you're not authenticated, redirect to the base path. Oh, we forgot something though. We need our config file, the most important file that contains all of our helpers and everything else. There we go. Now we're ready. So if you're, yeah, Shane.
So technically, as an admin, could you create with PHP a button for admins to not delete, but to time them out for 48 hours? Let's say it's a
yeah, base. We have that in our system actually. So if they don't pay their bill, we suspend their account. Okay. And it suspends them until they pay their bill or for a set period of time. Okay. Yeah. But so what you would do is you would add a flag to the table that says suspended, and either you would make it a Boolean or a date, right? I would recommend a date if you want to do it by 24 hours, right? So you put a date in there, and then every so often you run a cron task that basically looks at all of the users in the database and says, are any of you no longer suspended? If you're not, then it re-enables them. And then you run that cron task every, I don't know, however often you want to do that. So cron, do you guys have experience with cron? No? So cron's really cool. And actually it is available on Windows and Mac, only they don't call it cron. Well, they do in Mac. So in Linux world, it's called cron. But in Windows, it's called a daemon. So, or a service, right? You guys are familiar with services. What it is it's an application that literally runs in the background all the time and just constantly runs. And then you can set it to execute certain things at certain intervals, right? So I can tell a cron task to only execute at 2 a.m. in the morning, but every day. And so every day at 2 a.m. in the morning, it'll execute and run whatever command I tell it to run. Or I can tell it to execute every second. Or I can tell it to execute every millisecond if I really wanted to. I can execute it as fast as I want it to execute. The only annoying thing about cron is cron will automatically thread itself, which means if I tell it to run every second, it'll go and run that application, right? Even if that application has not completed, cron will run the next one the next second and keep doing it and keep taking up threads on your processor. And eventually you'll just run out of memory and crash, right? So you have to be careful with things like cron. But cron are super helpful, but that's exactly how we would do it. We'd set a date in the database, add a cron task to check the database every 2 minutes or so, or whatever, and then it would just clear them out as it goes.
Is that something that you put up on your server?
Yeah, so you'd have to add the cron task to the server, and then you would have to, basically you're just creating a path for the cron to go. With PHP, it's weird. You do have PHP CLI, which is a command line interface for PHP scripts. So you could do it through PHP CLI. Or I had a junior developer working with me and he wasn't comfortable with the CLI tool. I said, just create a URL that requires authentication through get parameters, like just basic authentication, and just tell cron to access that URL and pass those authentication parameters. Check the authentication parameters in your script, execute your task or whatever it is. And so that's what he did. He just created a URL and pointed to it. That's not the best way to do that. That is not a great way to do it. Much better to use the command line tool and keep everything nice and internal. But yeah. All right, so we're going to check to see if we're authenticated. Otherwise, we'll redirect the user. The next check is literally the same thing that we wrote at the top of the edit.php file, which is if your session user ID does not match the $_get ID and you're not in a min, you're getting redirected to the base path. And base path is just basically home. We will send you home. We're going to add a little bit of cheekiness here. We don't want to allow the administrator to delete themselves, right? The administrators can't delete themselves. There's no reason for them to. We don't want to permit them to do that. So they can delete other administrators. They can do that all day, but they just can't delete themselves. So what we're going to do is we're going to say if, this is our next check, if the user ID is equal to the session user ID and you are an administrator. This time we'll create an error message and then redirect them. So we're basically saying, if the ID that you want to delete, if the user you want to delete is you, and you are an administrator, then we'll create a message saying /danger equals no kamikaze you cannot delete yourself from existence unless you're Thanos. Does it exist dance or exist dance? Is it with an A or an E? I forget. It's E? Okay. Or is it an I? No, never mind. And then I'm going to redirect And this time I'll redirect them somewhere because they're an administrator, so I'll probably just redirect them back to the users table and be like, you can't delete yourself, but look at all these other wonderful people you can delete. So that handles them trying to delete themselves if they're an administrator. And usually when you're writing code blocks like this, because it's a bit of a code wall, it's not a bad idea to add a comment above saying admins cannot delete themselves. So that deals with our administrator issues. That deals with the whole get the admin, see if they're the same thing, right? Next, we're going to fire off our command to the database, but we will have to bind parameters because we are still accepting user values that we have to check against. So our SQL, have you guys deleted anything in your SQL class yet? Yeah, okay. So it's delete from users where ID is equal to the bound ID. We'll create a statement and we'll prepare our SQL. We'll bind our parameter. And then we'll execute. And we will assume it worked. And we will say redirect with success, $_session, slash message, success equals user was successfully deleted, redirect to base path, users. However, I don't want to redirect there if they're not an administrator. So we'll do that if they're an administrator. Actually, we'll write this way. We'll do an if else because it actually makes sense. So if they're an administrator, we'll redirect them to users where they can see that the user is now removed. Otherwise, we're going to unset $_session user. In other words, log out the user. And then we'll redirect them to home. So if they're the administrator, we'll take them back to the users and let them see that the user has been removed. If they are not an administrator, in other words, they'll be deleting themselves, we log them out so they can't do any more actions after that point, and we redirect them off to the base path, which is home. So quite a bit to write there. Sorry about that, but 28 lines though. We deleted a user in 28 lines with role-based considerations, which is pretty good. Nice and small. After this, we'll add our new SQL in. We'll test this, make sure it works, and then we'll add our new SQL in for our next step. And then we'll take a break for 10 minutes. I'll see if I can fix my internet during that time. It's a lot to type, isn't it? If you have it typed out and you're done, feel free to go over to the users table if you are logged in as the administrator. If you're not, you can just go over to your profile, hit delete, and it will auto delete. There won't be any notification or anything. It will immediately delete because we haven't added a confirm yet. And it should, if it works, redirect you back to the home page if you deleted your own profile, telling you that you successfully deleted the user. Otherwise, if you're the administrator, it'll redirect you back to users. All right. Anybody not ready yet? Do you have a syntax error, Shane?
Sorry?
Do you have a syntax error, or is that what you're trying to figure out? Okay. What I will do is copy this, obviously, over to Slack. That's okay. That's totally okay. I'll put this in Slack anyway, so we'll be fine. There we go. Make this PHP /users/destroy.php is where it's going. Great, the snippet. All right. I think I mentioned this last week, but I'll just mention it again. Don't try copying and pasting out of here because it creates these weird little new line characters when you do that. Just click download, then copy it from your own system, and then it won't be an issue. Wait a minute. How is Slack working, but I have no internet access? I call lies. Lies to everything. All right. Let's go check and see if this thing works. So first, I'm already logged in as a administrator, and I'm going to delete Smelnora. Say goodbye, Smelnora. Delete. Oh, wow. That is a lot of errors. Yeah. Include once config.php. Obviously, that is not the correct address. So let's go fix that first. Include once is actually pointed to includes and then underscore config.php. Oh, yeah, there is no includes, right? It's underscore. That's what I was missing. I was missing the underscore. Thank you. Underscore config.php is what that is. So if you download that code, make sure you change that. All right, let's try that again. Control R. Oh, undefined variable user destroy.php on line 9. Line 9. Why did I use user? That was silly. Not user. It's underscore get. Change that to underscore get. We don't have a user. We never defined a variable called user. I have a long day today, that's for sure. All right. Once you've changed that, Alt-Tab, Control-R, undefined variable con on line 6. Wow, I just didn't, no effort applied here whatsoever. Let's try adding the con variable now. Include once root dot includes underscore connect dot php $con equals connect. You'll need those two lines in order to create the connection. Completely forgot that. And that makes sense. How do I connect to the, how do I do anything with the database if I don't connect to it? I need to connect to it. Just put that right below the comment, delete the user. So that obviously includes our connection script. That's the function so that we can connect. Then we can delete from the users, prepare our statement, find our parameters, and execute, which should result in the user being deleted. Incidentally, execute will return something for you. Execute will return the number of rows that whatever the SQL command was that you provided has affected, right? So if I am deleting from users, this should return 1, meaning it affected 1 row successfully. If it returns 0, it means that it didn't find the users or something happened where it wasn't able to complete. And if it returns more than 1, well, then we're really in bad trouble, right? Because it means that we've deleted more than 1 user, right? So you got to consider those two things. But execute will return back the number of rows that it has affected. All right. Can I jump and refresh? Yes? Okay. Yay! And Smell Nora is gone. Yeah. All right. Well, now I shouldn't be able to delete myself. If I click my own profile and hit delete, no kamikaze, you cannot delete your own existence. All right. Let's log in as one of these people. I'll log in as Umberhoff. Log out. Log in. Control V. Thank you, Janelle. I have your whole Harlings line that you just copied. So what's interesting about Max, we share an Apple ID. Anything she copies to her clipboard immediately copies to the cloud clipboard, which when I go to paste on this machine, now pastes her copy over to me. So you got my code and I got your blog. Fantastic. Okay, let's try that again. I just need one of these email addresses. There we go. Test. Okay, so I'm logged in as a basic user, right? And I'm going to click delete. And user was successfully deleted, and it logged me out so that I'm not logged in anymore because I've deleted myself, right? So all that is working. The only concern I have is that the delete button works a little too well, right? I hit delete and it immediately deletes. There's no like pre-warning, right? Exactly. So we need to kind of pre-warn the user. So I'm going to log in as the admin. Oh yeah, forgot my own password there for a second. So I'm going to go to users, view all users, and I'm going to make it so that when I click delete here, it actually pops up and says, please confirm that you want to delete this user. So we'll have to actually edit that under the show.php. We'll have to edit our link here. What we'll do is we'll add a new attribute. It's a little chunk of inline JavaScript, and it's called onClick. OnClick is an event that occurs when you click. So whatever happens inside these quotes will happen the second you click, okay? So we're going to return, confirm, and that takes a quoted string inside it. Are you sure you want to delete this user? So from here to here. So just a tiny little bit of JavaScript that basically guards our request. That's it. Confirm is a built-in JavaScript function, just so you know, that literally will return a Boolean back to the script. And that's essentially what's happening. When you click, it actually intercepts the default operation and basically says, oh, okay, I'll execute this thing. And you say, yeah, are you sure you want to delete this person? And if you say no, then you return false back to the default operation, which cancels it out. So it won't let the A link head off where it needs to go. And there's a whole bunch of those type of inline attributes. There's on click, there's on mouse out, on mouse down, on mouse over, on key press, whole bunch of different ones. You guys don't have JavaScript this semester, do you? You get JavaScript next semester though, right? Yeah. You won't get me. I don't know who you'll get. You'll probably get Albert, actually, because he's been teaching JavaScript lately. Give me a thumbs up when you're ready. Have confidence, Shane.
No, I followed along with the video that you posted on YouTube, and on that, you did it in a single line, so I don't know where I'm screwing this up.
Did it in a single line. What part did I do in a single line? This is all one line. So line 74 is not on a new line. What's happening is line 74 is wrapping off the screen and coming on to the next line underneath.
So what's technically in front of the on click?
This end quote character, yeah. So if I was to shrink it up a little bit, see? I can barely read it, but at least you can kind of get an idea of what's happening. So it's all one line. Just I have screen wrap on so that you guys can actually read the code from where you are. It just conveniently is breaking right at that point. Yeah. All right, I'm going to jump over to the browser. You have to refresh in order for JavaScript to kick in. I'm going to click delete. Are you sure you want to delete this user? Should pop up. If I hit cancel, nothing will happen. If I hit delete again, are you sure you want to delete this user? And I hit OK, it'll delete the user. And the user is now gone. Yeah, you wrote JavaScript. Not very entertaining. I mean, it doesn't do anything all that fancy, but all right. We can create a user, we can read a user, we can update a user, and we can delete a user. We have officially finished CRUD. And yes, it's about users, but in the end of the day, we've created CRUD for a resource, right? It's a database resource that we can create, read, update, and delete. We've also created authentication for our users, right? Role-based authentication. So you get administrators and you get basic users, right? This whole thing is now ready to be pulled and put into whatever your current project is as one piece, right? That you will already have your users ready to go. Our next step is actually to create a parent-child relationship. And when I originally started this project, I was optimistic that we would be able to create like little page snippets and stuff that we could use as part of our portfolio. I have since abandoned that idea. We're going to do we're going to do the parent-child relationship of post and comments because it's such an easy relationship to kind of see. Actually, why am I drawing it out? I have it. I already drew it out in, nope, not that page. There we go. I drew it out in our notes. So I've written some database stuff for us to import. We're going to import a whole new database chunk that will basically change our database a little bit, and it's going to add 2 new tables to our database. It's going to add posts and comments to our database. It's also going to create the foreign key relationships for us and put those in place. So we'll have all of that, but we're going to do it chunk by chunk because I want you to know exactly what you're doing when it comes regards to MySQL, but we're going to copy and paste it. We're just going to review it before we actually paste it. So I'm not going to make you type it out. We'll just copy and paste it. Come on, kick in. Oh, forget you. Not trying to confuse anybody, but we need the Mac for a minute. I need an internet connection. What is happening? Why am I getting resolving host? That is super weird that I'm not getting an internet connection properly. And you guys are. Which makes it even weirder. Very typical of Georgian. Hello, IT. Oh, there we go. Establishing secure connection, waiting for www Google. Come on. I mean, my DNS is slow, but not that slow. All right. Oh, jerk. And you're still just thinking about it. It's something to do with, it's really bizarre, but it's something to do with Parallels. When Parallels is open and I try to open a browser instance, it just kills the browser instance on the Mac side. It happens like every time I try to do anything. And now I've got to go through this whole process again. Nope, done. Where's my bag? All right. This is the reason why it's so important to come to class. When stuff like this happens, they're not going to see anything. But you guys will, because you're here. Screen. There we go. All right, so this is the code we're going to not type out, but copy and paste. This is our SQL. But let's talk a bit about this thing. Anybody know what this is called? Has Andrew or Ben explained about modeling, data modeling, and what it's called? So this is a data model. It's called an ERD, stands for Entity Relational Diagram. Basically what it is a visual reflection of what your database is going to look like. And these are super helpful, right? So PHP-MyAdmin supports building ERDs right inside PHP-MyAdmin. You just click on the database, and then you click on diagrams, and then you can draw this, right? MySQL Workbench has an even better ERD builder. You'll have to go searching for it, but you can actually build these diagrams in MySQL Workbench as well. Why they're helpful is because sometimes you don't know what your database is going to look like yet. You haven't figured that out. You kind of have a rough idea of what you need for your application, and sometimes it's easier to just start plugging in the pieces that you know you need. Like, for example, I'm rebuilding my lesson plan builder. I want to make it so that I can deliver quizzes and tests right inside my lesson, so that when you're going through the lesson, a question will be there, and you can fill it out, and it will record it, and not only record it, but also grade you for it. So I want to build that. And in order to do that, I was looking at how I want to do it. I want to make it so that I can select from a question pool and have multiple questions. So I started out with one table. I started out with questions. Wasn't sure what it was going to look like yet, so I drew it out, and I said, okay, you're going to have an ID, you're going to have a created at field, and you're going to have a last updated field. Then I was like, okay, well, what does the question need? Well, I might need content, right? The actual question itself. So I called it content, put content in there. And then I was thinking, there's so many different types of questions. You have true or false, you have multiple choice, you have multiple answer matching questions, but I also want code questions so that when a user types in code, I can parse it as code and then evaluate it and give you back the evaluation. So I thought, well, how am I going to handle that? So I figured I'm going to handle with question handler. And the question handler will actually fire off a function and a totally different application to deal with that particular question. So I got pretty in depth. And by the time I was done, I had about 17 tables, right? All ready to build this whole thing. But I haven't written a single line of SQL, not one, because I can take my whole ERD, figure it out, plot it, draw my relationships to how my tables are going to relate to each other. And then when I'm done, the best part about it is I can reverse engineer my diagram into SQL. So it will write the SQL for me. And you can do that in Workbench. So you can draw it visually and then reverse engineer it out to SQL and then just execute the SQL. So much easier than trying to figure out foreign key relationships, right? But this is our ERD. So we have a users table, right? That we've already built. We already know what that looks like. I haven't made any modifications to the users table. It is the way it is in the database currently. We've added a post table. Posts require a user, which makes sense, right? I can't have a book without an author. That's weird. Where did the book come from? Right? So the user is essentially the author of the post. So I need to be able to tie a user to a post. This is a one-to-many kind of relationship. One user will have many posts, okay? And the line kind of looks like that. Notice how the dot at the top left next to the ID is kind of small, but the dot next to here is kind of thick. That's supposed to indicate one-to-many. Posts can have comments, right? One post can have many comments associated with that post, which makes sense, right? You see that online when you go look at an article or when you're reading a blog or something like that. You'll get all these people who have posted to the blog, right? And they added comments to it. We're making it so that our comments are linked to a logged in user. Hence why if you look, we kind of have this triangle thing going on here. It's weird a little bit because the user that the comment is associated with isn't likely the user that wrote the post. So it can be. You just need to understand the fact that a comment will have one user, but a user can have many comments. A post can have one user, but a user can have many posts. And a post can have many comments. So we have like 3 relationships going on inside our table, which is pretty cool. Give you a full understanding of how all this works, right? So step 1 will be to create our new database, right? Really, we're not creating our new database. We're just adding these other tables that we're missing from before, okay? However, I think what we'll do is drop our users table and recreate our users table with nice fresh data inside of it. Also with 2 new roles. We're going to have, or not 2 new roles, same roles, but 2 new users. We're going to have an admin at test.com and their password will be test. And we're going to have a general at test.com and their password will be test. So we can log in as a general user or log in as an admin user and everybody has the same identification. Nice and easy. All right, let's unplug that. Come back to here. Yeah, that was just a total failure, never coming back. All right, go away. Nope, go away. There we go. All right, everything we are going to do will be in our PHP My Admin panel. We'll do this first, and then when we're finished, we'll take a break. Oh, I need that lesson plan. This is really annoying. I need that lesson plan. All right, thank God for unlimited internet access. It's only 3G, so I don't know how well that's going to be, but we'll find out. Oh, it's already better than Georgian. That's all that really matters. Okay. I go to parent-child resources. So this link is already in Blackboard if you navigate to Blackboard. And you're definitely going to want to do this because you're going to want to copy and paste. You're not going to want to have to go through the headache of trying to type this out. And I don't want to wait for you to type it out because it's so much. All right, we're on 1. Weekly learning. Lesson 6, parent-child relationships. There's a new quiz, just so you know. There we go. So this is our block of text. So this is our comment block. The next block is our post block. And then we have our users. So why don't we do our users first? What this code basically says is drop the table if it exists. So users exist, so it will drop the table. Have you guys dropped tables? Oh, cool. Create the table if not exists, right? Users. Add in the fields that we've already added before. I explained, I think, at one point how created at and updated at work. Basically, created at will have the date that it was created. Updated at will be the date that it was created as well. The next time you update the record, that timestamp will change to whenever you updated it, which is kind of cool because you can keep track of when the record was modified. Primary key, you understand that concept. This is different. We were using MySam, right? So the engine was MySam, which looks like MYSAM. The issue with MySam is the MySam engine does not support foreign key relationships. So you can't actually create relationships between tables, which is kind of annoying. InnoDB does support foreign key relationships. However, MySam supports JSON in a field that you can actually query. So you can actually query the JSON in the field. InnoDB does not. Moral of the story, don't use MySQL, use Postgres is the moral of the story. But for now, because this is a MySQL class, we're just going to change our engine over. So all you need to do, we're only going to copy from drop table, this is for the users, down to the UTF-8 line, right to that semicolon there. So just copy this users thing, right? Hit Control-C on your keyboard. Go to PHP myadmin, so localhost, PHP myadmin. Oh, not even on the right box. There we go. So once you're in PHP myadmin, click on the comp1006 line, not a table. So make sure you're not on a table. You've clicked the comp1006, okay? And at the top here, by the way, there's the designer that I was talking about before for building ERDs. We want SQL. So we're going to click on SQL. And we can actually paste raw SQL and run it against our database right from in here. So we're just going to paste that database that we just copied. Arrgh. Don't copy and paste for a second. Just for 1 minute. Let me go do that again. I'll grab the table here. There we go. We'll get ring in the holiday season out of there. And we'll place it with our SQL query. All right, so in it goes. Once you're done that, all you have to do is click go. Do you really want to do this thing? Yes, I do. Boom, everything's executed. We have a now empty users table. Our users table is completely empty. So our next step, let's go take a look at the lesson plan. Our next step is to create these other tables. So we have a comments table and a post table. And it actually doesn't matter the order we create them in because we don't set up the relationships until later down in the script. So you could copy this whole script, paste it, and it will execute just fine. There won't be any issues because we're not actually creating the foreign key relationships until later. What is important, though, is to make sure you have columns that will let you set up those foreign key relationships, right? Now, I'm not sure what Andrew or Ben has told you about setting up relationships. I might be doing it differently than they've done it. I follow the model view controller way, where we're actually working with models. So I make sure my naming convention works in that same kind of format. So the way I do it, my relationship tables always begin with the name of the table that I want to connect with, right? So I started off with post. So all comments are going to relate to a post, right? That's just inevitable. So inside my comments table, I create a field called post underscore ID, and that will be its parent. That's how I create that connection. In there, I also have a user underscore ID. That will create the relationship with the users table. At the end of the day, though, these are just fields. Right now, they are just fields. They have no meaning. The relationship isn't there any more than just the name, right? The relationship only exists based on the name. The relationship won't actually be hardened in till we create the foreign keys. That's when the relationship gets set up. So we can go ahead and just execute these guys because all it is just creating tables. So I'm going to copy the comments one from drop table if exists all the way down to the UTF-8. I'm going to jump in here, click on SQL, paste, and go. The lesson plan builder. It's like the one right at the top. Yeah. So go ahead and copy that and paste that in. You're pasting that under the SQL block here. And when you're done, you're just going to click go. And once you click go, it's going to come up and prompt you, are you sure you want to drop it? Yes, I do. And then your SQL should run. We're going to do the same thing with posts now. So scroll down a little bit, highlight the post one, copy it, click on SQL and paste it in place. The fields we're going to create for the post are going to be title, content, right? Just basic field, status, whether or not it's a draft or published, but I don't think we'll ever get to the point of dealing with the logic for that, so don't really worry about it. Created at and updated at. So just a very basic table. Comments, same thing. It's basically those same kind of fields. It's title, content, and an active status, whether or not we actually approved it or not. That's it. So go ahead and click go to create that one. Click OK. Boom. That's a weird comment to make here. We're going to ignore that for now. Not sure why it's doing that. All right, so we have our three tables. Like I said, comments, it has title, comment, and approved. Those are really the things we care about, and it has two relationships. It's going to have a relationship with post ID, with post, and a relationship with users. Post has title, content, and status, and it's going to have a relationship with users, right? Users has no relationships with anybody. They're just on the lonely road. All right. We need our actual data. So don't insert this yet. Instead, we're going to run these alter commands first. So the first one is going to set up the foreign key relationships for comments and posts and users and comments, okay? So basically, it's going to turn those into parents for it. What this command means is it means that there's a constraint between the post ID column and posts themselves on comments. And what that constraint actually does is it means I can't delete a post without first deleting the associated comments. Does that make sense? Because there's a connection between those two things. That's what the constraint is for. It stops you from doing things where you create unassociated data. Otherwise, you have all these comments sitting in your database that have no parent anymore. They're just, for lack of a better term, they're orphaned. That's actually the term. They're orphaned and they're just frolicking in there and nobody takes ownership. All right, so we're gonna create that relationship. So go over to here again, click SQL, hit Control V, and then click Go. And we should get a nice green line saying that we created the constraint. We'll do the next one. This one is alter table post, and this time we're just going to add the user constraint. And what that basically means is we can't remove a user without removing all of the posts and comments they're associated with. So we will actually be adding another alter at some point that will perform cascade actions. What a cascade action is that if I delete the user, it will immediately cascade and go remove all the comments associated with that user and remove the post. Before it removes the post, it'll remove all the comments for that post and then remove the post and then remove the user. So it will take care of all that cleanup for us. We don't have to worry about it. And plus, MySQL is much faster at that than we are to write code to do that. So, all right, so we just need to copy that one, jump over, click on SQL, Control V, and go. And there we go. And if you want to see the nice design of your database, up in the top right-hand corner, you can click on the designer, and it generates it for you and shows you a picture of what your database looks like with the relationships. And you can click and move these little guys around. Does it? Takes a second for the lines to boot up, but yeah. So you can kind of see that, and you can edit and add more tables. There's like a whole bunch of little options on the side here, so you can add more tables in and stuff like that. Definitely handy. It's also an easier way to kind of show people you're working with what your grand scheme is going to be, and then they get that idea. We have one last copy and paste. We are going to copy all of these users. So this is going to be a bit difficult because it goes way off the side of the page. So what I would recommend doing, just start at the copy and come down to this blank line, bring your mouse into the blank space, and then that should grab all of them. And then hit Control C. What we're basically doing is creating 10 users, and then those 10 users are going to have 50 blogs between them, and the 50 blogs will have 300 posts between them. So we're going to create all that data at once. And I spent hours typing. No, I didn't. Such a lie. Click on SQL. Control V. As long as it ends in a parenthesis and a semicolon, we're good. Don't pay too much attention. As long as it ends with that parentheses and semicolon, it means you copied and pasted it properly. And then I'm going to click Go, and it's going to add all of our records in. And if it worked, we should have posts. We have no posts. We have no comments. We have lots of users. Well, that's good to know. All right, I will fix that so that we have the actual posts because we need the posts and the comments as well. But I think we'll take a break, let our brains kind of recoup a little bit, and then when you come back, I'll have that fixed, and we'll go ahead and insert those guys in, and then we'll start building the index page. Cool. We'll just load in our SQL. So because I was missing the insert statements for comments and posts, instead of going through the hassle of copying and pasting and doing all this stuff all over again, we'll just load in the database file. So if you go to Blackboard Lesson 6, you'll see the new database. Just click on it. It'll download for you. It should be called comp1006.sql. And it's up to you if you want to move it from there into your project files. Go ahead. That's totally fine. Otherwise, I'm just going to go to PHP MyAdmin. I'm going to click on the comp 1006, so I've got that database selected. And I'm going to click import, choose file, navigate to my downloads. It should be a link here. Yeah, should be under the quick access link. Select my comp 1006 folder or 6 file that I just downloaded. Yours might not say .sql if you have file extensions hidden. And then I'm going to click open. But when you open it, it should say the full file name there once you open it. And then once you've done that, scroll down to where it says go and click go. It's going to take a couple of seconds because there's so many records being inserted. I mean, literally not even a second, actually. And if it worked, if you click on comments, you should see comments listed in the comments. Posts should have posts in it. Users should have a few users in it. So you should have all of those things. Does anybody need me to walk that again? No? All good? Gentlemen, you're good? Cool. All right. Pitter patter, let's get at her, right? All right. So we were working on our SQL stuff. The next step for us is to work on our index view. So our index view for posts, now you have to understand that CRUD, very simple, right? Create a resource, read a resource from the database, either read all of the resources or just read one, either way you're reading. Update that resource or delete a resource, right? So the idea of CRUD, it isn't exclusive to web development. So a lot of people will come into these, especially my course, because it's like the first web dev course you really have that includes a server and a client. And they're like, CRUD, what the heck is CRUD? Why am I doing this? But if you think about it, you use CRUD in almost any application you build. Almost every single application you will ever build will involve some form of CRUD. It may not involve a database, though. You may be writing to a flat file on your system. Did you guys do file writing inside your Java class? Did you write anything to a file? No? Usually that's like number one thing you'd learn in intro to programming is how to write to a file. But think of it like a video game, right? When you go to your video game and you load it up, you're playing away, right? And you decide you want to save your game. Congratulations, you're creating CRUD. Because in order for that game to be saved, right, it needs to have a save file. That save file needs to capture information about your game, needs to save it into some sort of either a directory, a database, or a file, right? And then when you want to load your game, you have to read that file from wherever it's located, right? You play your game and you save again. You've now just edited and updated that file, right? And then if you decide you want to be a jerk and delete your brother or sister's game, that's delete, right? That's the last part of the CRUD operation. So all those pieces still exist regardless of what you're doing. Anytime you guys use Google Docs, right? CRUD operation happening. Let's take it offline using Microsoft Word. Still, CRUD operation, still happening, always happening, and you use it constantly. And any application you develop will likely contain some form of CRUD. That's just the way it is. So it isn't exclusive to web development. Building CRUD systems in web development requires a little bit of planning, right? And if I can give you any advice, in order to build the best systems that are the easiest to maintain, that are the easiest to work with, and that you're not going to wind up in a lot of hassle, it's best to follow a common convention. You don't necessarily need to even make it as complicated as we have, like with our config files and our helpers and nested folders and all that stuff. You don't even need to make it that complex. Everything could live just in the root directory, totally, just fine. Would live there just fine, right? But what I would recommend is when you're naming your files, name them by what they do, right? Name them by what their purpose is. So when I'm building a CRUD system, I do like to create a directory for whatever resource it is that I'm CRUDing. So if I'm CRUDing users, I'll create a directory called users, and then I'll immediately create these 7 files every single time. I create an index file to show all my users. I create a show file to show one user. I do a new, an edit, create, update, and destroy, right? I have 4 view files, which is index, show, new, and edit. And then I have 3 action files, which are create, update, and destroy. The only difference between those types of files is that our view files actually show something visually to the user, right? You have a form that you can actually look at. Whereas create, update, and destroy, the user doesn't actually see anything and they get redirected from that page anyway. So they don't actually see any output from that page, right? They're non-outputting pages. So step 1, keep your views and logic separate. That's a very smart approach to any server-side type scripting you're going to be doing. Keep view logic separated from processing logic, right? So my view logic is, this is my form. My processing logic is, now I'm working with the user's data. I keep those things nicely separated in their own little platform. You don't have to, because what you can do is you can have the form post back to itself. It'll post back to the page, but now at the top of the page, you've got to handle that data. You also have to check to see if there is data. Now, you kind of mix these 2 different actions, and it makes it a lot harder to maintain. It's easier to maintain when they're separated. Number 2, never trust user data. Always think they're a skeevy, lying snake at the other end of that keyboard. Because if you think that way, you will protect yourself and your data and your application from possible malicious issues, but not even just malicious. You're also protecting it from the general idiot, right? That's going to try dumb things into your application, not understand what they're doing, and break your application. That's also what you're protecting against. By validating, sanitizing, and normalizing your data, you can avoid not just malicious issues, but also just common mistakes that people make. Maintain a naming convention pattern. This is a super, super important process. If you're going to name all your variables with camel case, that's where the first letter is lowered and the second letter is uppercase, right? Snake case, which is where you use underscores, right? Is it title case? Yeah, title case, which is where every word has an uppercase letter, right? Doesn't matter what you choose to do. Just make sure you do it all the time, right? Don't switch back and forth between those conventions. If you create a convention, we have that one function that is auth, and I said that is, this part here, means I'm going to return a Boolean, right? I'm going to maintain this convention throughout my application. So that way, if another developer is working and they see this, they know that that function is returning a Boolean. Ideally, it should be returning a Boolean. So there's that. So same thing with database names. I always make sure that my database names are plural because they're holding multiples of something, right? I call it users because there's not just one user in my database. That'd be a terrible database. I have multiple users, right? I have multiple posts, multiple comments. So I use plural. But when I fetch one record, I store it in a variable that is singular because I have one of them. So that also helps another developer working on my application to know that this thing contains many rows or this thing contains one row because they can tell by the singular versus plural on how I'm working with that. I also make sure, and I showed you this with our diagram last week, I make sure my form field names, so the names I give my fields, match the columns in my database. Those are 1-to-1. And if I do that, it makes my life so much easier because I don't now have to convert those names back and forth. That's not always possible because you'll sometimes come into new systems or old systems, right? And you'll be working with somebody else's code and you won't be able to do that. But if you're starting with a fresh system, definitely take that approach. Makes your life so much easier. Also, file names for resources match action and purpose. Arrays containing multiple database records are also in plural format, and arrays containing one database record should be in the singular format. I also build helper functions. Helper functions are so fantastic because they simplify your issues, right? They're just a function. I'm just calling it a helper function, right? But I'm calling it a helper function because that's exactly its purpose, is to help you with your application. So we built isAuth, isAdmin. Those are helper functions because we're going to be doing those checks so much that it makes sense to have a function that I can access. Helper functions are generally accessible from every single place in your system. That's very important to understand. Don't create helper functions that are only accessible in some files. Make them accessible in every file. Otherwise, they're not very helpful. And last, number 5, normalize your link paths and your document paths. So you know how we've been using base path and root? Those are normalized because you don't know where you're going to be in your application with includes. You want to make sure you normalize your paths so that you're always starting from home, and that every single document include is from home, and every single link in your application is from home, right? It makes your life a lot easier, especially if you ever need to move those files to any other locations, right? Cool. So that's one of the important steps when you start building out applications. Let's write the code for our resource index for posts. So basically what we're going to do is we're just going to pull in all our posts, and we're going to do it a little different than we've done it in the past. If you look at like our users index, so I'm going to go to users/index. We're just looking at it. We're not going to make any edits. We have these 1, 2, 3, 4 statements just to select the users. Now, we have this prepare statement, which prepares our SQL statement, and then we have the execute, which executes it. And we generally use this because we're unsure of information we're getting back from the user. We don't know what kind of information we're getting from the user, so we have to be careful. We have to guard ourselves. But we're not binding any parameters. Like, we're not doing anything in this that even requires a user's involvement whatsoever. It's entirely ours. And if we can't trust our own data, who can we trust, right? It's our data. So we don't need to write all of that out. We actually have a shorter solution to get all the data we need in one line instead of having to do 4 lines. So let's go ahead and create some of our file structures first. I'm going to collapse users. I'm going to click just in this general blank area. I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call it posts. And that's going to be where all of our files go that have to deal with posts. I'm going to right click on posts, and I'm going to create a new file, and it's going to be called index.php. A new canvas for us. And that's under the posts. I'm going to add an PHP tag at the top, separated by a few lines, and close it. Because we will have HTML in this file, I have to close it. Actually, I'm going to write one more PHP statement just above it. There'll be an inline, and this will be where we conclude our config file. Oops, underscore config.php. Because we want our helper file. Our index pages will always grab all of that resource that we want and bring them back. Right now, I only want to fetch all of the posts that we're dealing with. I'm not going to worry about comments yet. I'm just going to go and fetch all of the posts that we have in our database and bring them back as one block. So first, obviously, I need to include our connect script. Include once, root, dot, includes, underscore, connect.php. And then I'll create my connection variable. And as promised, one line to fetch all of the posts in our database. Because we control all the operations here, I'm going to create a variable called post. I'm going to make it equal to $con, and we're going to use a new method called query. What query will do is it will execute a SQL statement and return back a result object that you can now use to either fetch what you want out of it, fetch all of what you want out of it, count it, do whatever you want with it. But it will return you back this wonderful little result object that you can now interact with. So query takes one argument. It takes the SQL we want to execute. So I'm going to execute select star from post. I'm going to retrieve all of the posts. Yeah, I think we did. I think we have done this once. Yeah. Right, because we were controlling the actual bound parameter too, because we had already fetched the user. So we could trust the data we were working with. I'll tell you the same thing I told Monday's class. I am completely okay with you using this statement when it makes sense, right? Don't opt in for the lazy way, especially if you're using user-supplied data. So if you're binding parameters or you're shoving in user-supplied data, I will deduct a mark for that because you're not trusting that data. You haven't done anything to make sure that data is okay, right? Always use bound parameters when you're using user-supplied data. If it's data that you went and got from the database and you can trust it, then definitely use the shorthand method. So here's what the problem is. If you don't bind parameters for user-supplied data, you will lose marks on whatever it is you're doing. But if you use shorthand for data you can trust because it's your data, you will gain marks as bonus marks for that because it shows that you understand what you're doing, okay? So if you don't understand, just use the old way. Then you don't lose anything. All right, so we can do this in two different ways. We could definitely go $post equals $post fetch all, like that. But before you type that out, stop. But PHP objects support chaining. Have you guys ever used chaining before? Do you have chaining in Java? Maybe you do. Chaining is where I call a method, and then the result from that method I can immediately pass into another method, or at least pass the object into the other method. And that's known as chaining, which means instead of doing this concept, I can bring this right up to here and go like this. This query will execute. It will pass the connection object off, and now this one will execute on that object. That's known as chaining. Most languages support chaining. JavaScript supports chaining. Ruby supports chaining. C++ supports chaining, which is going back quite a bit to a more rudimentary language. And PHP supports chaining. So I would definitely check to see if Java supports chaining because I'm confident it does. So this will return all our posts. So why don't we just do ourselves a favor just to make sure we've got them all? We'll just var dump $post, and we'll just see if we have all of our posts. So if you navigate, we don't have a link yet. They were missing a link. We have no way to get to that page yet. So why don't we go create a link so that we can easily get there back and forth, right? And the good news is posts are public. Public data. It's not under a protected wall or anything, so we don't have to worry about any authentication. So let's open up our nav, the main nav. And we'll put it right after about me because that makes the most amount of sense. So we'll add a new LI. We'll add an anchor link, .nav link. And this will be blogs. I know we called it posts, but we might Most people just say blog or blogs. I'm going to say blog, actually. Blog makes sense. Our path is very easy. Our path is going to point to the base path, post. Right? We have an index file in there, and because we have an index file, we don't need to go post/index. The browser will automatically assume that if we haven't given it a file name, it just needs to find the index file and load it. That's what the browser does automatically. So we kind of get like a vanity URL a little bit, or a slug if you want to call it a slug. We good? Anybody not good? Nope. All right. If we go back and we hit refresh, we should see our new link. There's our link for blog. Click on it, and we hit this page. Now, this translate's going to come up. It's because I have some lorem ipsum, which is actually Latin, in there. We can disable it by just saying never translate Latin, and then it will stop it. Or you can translate it. It's kind of funny, some of the stuff it comes up with. So these are each of our posts, right? Our post will contain an ID. It will contain the user that wrote it, so the number for the user that wrote it. It will contain the title of the post. It will contain the content of the post. So there's quite a bit of content there. We'll also have a published. So this one happens to be published. Some of them will say draft. And then the created at and updated at dates. So there's a few pieces in here. One thing that's missing, though, is I have the user ID number, but what I don't have is the user itself, right? Now, what I could do, and this would be super slow, but what I could do, I could iterate through each of these posts and run another SQL command that grabs the user associated with the post and pulls in their data, and then I can publish it out with each post. But here's the problem. Say I have a user who's done 5 posts, right? Even though I've already retrieved that user once, I'm going to retrieve them 5 times, the same user, because I'm doing it for each post, right? And that's going to happen across all of our users. And it gets even worse when we get into comments. If I want to load in the comments as well, now I've got like n times n times n kind of queries that I'm running, which are super slow and inefficient, right? Because each one of those has to make a connection to the database, run the query, and bring back the result set. So what I have available to me is a nice handy little bit of SQL called a join. What a join will do, a join will take 2 tables, and based on the value of 2 fields, connect those tables together so that you can actually reference the data from one table inside the data of another table. It almost merges them up, right? And it can literally be any 2 fields. Not sure if your database teacher told you that part. Most people use ID, but it doesn't have to be. You can actually match them up via phrases or strings or Boolean values, literally whatever you want. You can match those 2 fields up, right? So it doesn't matter what you're matching on, just as long as you have a relationship set for it, right? And interestingly enough, even further, the foreign key is completely optional. Joins work without foreign keys. They're not required. What the foreign key does is it creates a constraint. It basically says this thing has to exist. If you go to delete its parent, then you need to delete it first. Like you need to get rid of all the children before you can delete the parents, so you don't wind up with orphans, right? That's the whole idea. Got a complete famicide. Get rid of the whole family before you go ahead and remove a resource. All right, so we're going to use a join. You guys have used joins already, right? I know you guys have done them with foreign keys, but like I said, foreign keys are optional. But we've already done it. I've already created the foreign keys for you. What we need to do is add the foreign key, or sorry, not the foreign key. We need to add the join statement on here. So your first part of your select statement should be the parent you want, okay? So, sorry, not the parent, the child. It should be the child table that you want to retrieve. So I want to retrieve all of the post children. Then I want to join the parent onto each of the posts, right? So we're going to write join. The order of comparing the fields doesn't matter, right? What you do need to do, though, is join the next table. So don't join post to post, because that doesn't work, right? We want to join users, okay? That's the next piece. On, and this comparison can go in either order. Either you can do post.userid equals to users.id, or you can do users.id equals to post.user_id. Totally up to you. Doesn't really matter either way. It doesn't care. Most people will do this table's comparison first. That's just general convention. So they will do post.user_id like that. And then they'll make it equal to users.id like so. And one other piece that's kind of handy, once you have the object, these can actually live on their own lines, which makes it a little easier to read. You can put them all on one line, or you can have them go down to secondary lines. And the convention of the tabbing I've done here is usually the general convention. We're going to have a problem, unfortunately, which is going to kind of suck. It's when we join a table, it's a direct merge. Okay? We start with our parent table, and our parent table has, you know, its fields, right? It has all these fields. So here's posts. Here's comments, or sorry, not comments. Whoop. Here's users. All right, so post has ID, right? Has title, has content, has created at, I'll just write craw, and updated at, I'll just write upda, okay? So it has all these fields. Users has an ID column, has the name stuff, right? We got role things going on, and it also has craw and upda. When you do a join, it's a direct merge of this table onto this table. So what will happen is ID will replace the user's ID. So it's now gone. Craw will now replace the post craw, and upda will now replace the post upda. These fields will be unique, and those fields will be unique, but now you'll no longer be able to rely on when you do the post ID, it being the ID for the post, because it'll be the user's ID, which will screw everything up, right? So that's kind of the annoying thing about it, because when we retrieve the records back, it's going to be a blend of absolutely everything, but the ID column will wind up being the user's ID. So why don't we take a look at that, because we're already spitting out all the posts anyways. We'll see this now. If you go back to your page and refresh, you have a whole bunch of new columns, but if you notice, you have one ID column, you have one created at column, and you have one updated column. The ID column is 26. But if you look just a little below that, you see where it says 0 string 1? That's the actual ID of the post. Notice how those numbers are no longer similar to each other? Because it's replaced it. And if I decide to grab the post and I say, so say I store it, right? So I've got posts here. Why don't we output the first post? So we'll just do square brackets 0. And then we'll output its ID. If it's the first post, the ID of that first post should be 1. It should be ID 1. So I'm fetching my first post and I'm spitting out its ID, and I'm assuming I'm going to get back post 1. If I refresh though, I get back 26 because I'm not getting the post ID. I'm getting the merged table, which is the user's ID. So it screws it up, right? So the way we fix this, does anybody actually know how we fix this? We can use something called aliases. Have you guys used aliases before? So what aliases allow us to do is it allows us to reference a column from either of those two tables now and give it a new name. So what we'll do, we'll say select star from posts. So we won't say star. We'll say star, comma, post.id as, I think we can literally just say ID. And what that will do is override the post ID. So it'll override that ID column, and it will put our ID column back in and nix this. And here's why I don't care that it did that. Because posts also has a user ID column. So I can still get the user ID if I need it. So it's irrelevant, right? So let's see if that worked, because I'm actually doubtful. But we'll check. Yep, it works. Works perfect. I knew it all along. Lies. So that's cool. The created at and updated at, I don't really care about right now. I mean, we will at some point, though, because we may want to post the date. Actually, we will want to post the date, right? It's a blog. Like, come on. Like, the date is the minimal thing you need, right? Okay, so we should do that as well. So we'll say post ID, and then we'll say post dot, not the created at, but the updated at, right? Because when they switch from draft to publish, that will be the updated at date. So we're going to go from the updated at date as, oh, I screwed up. You see where I screwed up? I put these guys over here, and we need to move these guys over here. There we go. As updated at. Kind of a long SQL statement. We can actually split it up, which is kind of nice. There we go. Now it's at least a little easier to read. So we're saying select the post, select everything, and post.id as ID, and post.updated at as updated at. So our updated at date, so the upda now, will actually be in here. And this one will get nixed. So we'll have the post updated at now. So if we nix this ID piece off of here, we'll just spit out the first record. Everything else we're going to do is pretty quick. It's really just boiling down what particular user we're dealing with. It takes the most amount of time. Jump over to your browser, hit refresh, not Google Lobotometrics, but refresh, and there we go. So our ID is 1. Our updated at, yep, should be the 2019-11-19. Both of those should be the same, and they are. Everything is good. I'm happy. And really, at the end of the day, that's all that matters. So there we go. Yeah. So we have posts. Let's get rid of that var dump. Cool. So now we can go ahead and start creating the rest of our PHP page. So we have the PHP include once the headers, right? So let's go ahead and include that. PHP include once root dot slash partials slash underscore header dot PHP. So we need that. That gives us our headers. And we're going to need the footer. So do yourself a favor. Put your cursor on the line of that line and hit Alt-Shift down and just change the word to footer. And then put some distance between them. So that gives us the header and the footer. The hooter and the hooter. Emmet is super helpful. If you want to create something with a class and you know it's just going to be a div, all you have to do is actually type out the class name with a dot and hit tab, and it will autofill the div with the class name in it. So I can type right here dot container like so. Notice Emmet abbreviation is coming up here. I hit tab and it autofills it out for me. So I just created my container. My next element is a header, but it also has a class. And the way I write that one is I just type in header dot mt-5 and hit tab, and it will create a header with a class of mt5. Container is a bootstrap class that literally adds 2 margins on the right and left of our screen and immediately centers our content for us. Not only will it do that, but as our screen reduces in size, it will also handle all of our mobile stuff for us. So once we reach a certain point, it will make it so that the screen butts right up to the edges of your mobile phone and it doesn't keep cutting inwards, right? MT5 literally stands for margin top 5. So it will literally move 5. I don't even know what the measurement is. I think it's 5 points. So it's like 16 pixels on each point, but it moves 5 down from the top. So whatever. It works. It looks nice. In here, we're going to write an H1. And we're going to put a couple of pieces in here. I'm going to call it my blog. In brackets, I'm going to say the archives. I'm going to put a BR tag underneath it. And in small, I'm going to write the day in a life. Or whatever inspirational quote you decide to write. Actually, I'm going to change that to I like crayons. There we go. Much more inspirational. This block at the top is kind of just our heading type information. I'm going to create a new block below it. No, I'm not. I'm not going to do it the way they're doing it. It's weird. I'm going to write an HR here. That's just a horizontal rule. It's literally just a line across your page. is all it is. I'm going to create a new div called archives. I'm going to give it a class called archives. So just type .archives, hit tab. And then this is where I'm going to spit out all of my blog posts. But our blog posts are all going to basically use the same template, right? We're only going to show a preview because we don't want to show the whole blog post. So we're just going to show a preview of each blog post. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a for each loop here. So PHP for each. And I'll end it on the next line below. Like so. The condition we're going to use, very simple, $post as $post. So from plural to singular, right? Posts, as in I have several posts, as post as I'm working with one of them at a time. Bootstrap has these like cards, which are kind of cool. Basically what they look like is it's like this block. And it has some nice styling to it. So we're going to have our title up here, like so. And then we're going to have like a line. And then we're going to have who it's by, right? And then we're going to have our blog post here. And we're going to truncate it. And we're going to have a read more dot dot dot. And that's going to be a nice little link. That's what we're going to create for each blog post. And we're going to stack them all in a big row. Column, sorry. So first, let's just make sure everything is kind of working. We have a for each loop that's empty, but that's fine. We don't care about that. If we jump over to our browser and hit refresh, we should be able to see my blog, archives, I like crayons, or whatever inspirational message you happen to write. What you shouldn't see is a PHP error. All right, we have quite a bit of just text to write in here, which is kind of annoying. Usually I do copy and paste, but I figure we'll just write this one out because we'll probably just do the index page and we'll leave show for next week, right? All right, so this is our card. So it's going to be .card.mb-2 tab. So what that is, card is a class, MB-2 is margin bottom 2, whatever measurement 2 happens to be. And then I'm going to split those apart. And I will post this to Slack. Sometimes when we're writing big walls of text, some people just like to watch and then copy and paste it afterwards, which is totally fine. The next one is really annoying. There's a whole bunch of classes. It's .card-body, .deflex, which stands for directional flex, .flex-row, .justify-content-between, .align-items-center tab. I'll copy and paste that for you. Because I will post it. Yeah, I will post it. All right, so that's the next one. And then the next one is .mr-4. And this is where we're going to put the image. So image, the source will be https via.placeholder.com/350x350. Or no, 300, sorry. Cool. The alt tag I don't care about. The class is going to be image fluid, image thumbnail. So kind of tedious. basically looks like this. We have this kind of shape, and there's a little image on the side. That's basically what it is. So quite a bit there. The rest of it's not so bad. So I'll copy that. I will copy the whole thing for those of you that want to be super lazy and not write anything. Not talking about you, Shane. All right, so paste this in place. HTML. Create snippet. Make sure you download it and then post it, because it's otherwise you'll get copy paste errors. All right. Once you have that, outside of that div, so outside of this one here, I'm going to create a new div. Why am I creating a new? Oh, I see why. I'm going to create a new div. And then inside that div, I'm going to have .card title, which is going to be an H3. And it's going to wind up being a link. And then we're going to have an HR, and then small, and this will be the author. And then underneath all of that, I'm going to have p.card.text. Yeah, maybe I'll just post all of this. It's so ridiculous. Yeah, I'll post all of this, because we'll just fill in the blanks. As long as you guys are okay with that. Sorry about that. I'll edit the post I just did. There. Just grab it from Slack. It'll make your lives a little bit easier. And then we'll just plug in the details that we need. So the things that are going to be different, that are going to be dynamic, obviously if we had an image source, that would be a dynamic piece, right? We'd pull that from the post. We don't have an image source. But what we do have is this aref. What this aref is going to point to is going to point to the show of our blog post. So where we can actually go view the full blog post, okay? So we'll make the title an href so that or an anchor so that they can just click it. And we'll also make the read more button that we're going to create an anchor as well. And we'll add the author's information in here too. So let's start with the aref, right? Because it's the longest thing to write. So it's going to be an inline PHP statement, so base path, like so, /posts, /show.php, !ID equals. That should seem very familiar, right? It's just like creating a show to users. It's exactly the same process. Equals, $post, not underscore post, totally different type of post. $post, post ID. Nope, sorry, it's just called ID. Like so. And then I'll put the link, like the link text, nested instead of in line, where it just kind of wraps off. And it will also be $post title. So you're writing that. So we're creating the link to the show page. We're using the post ID to get back the ID that we need to give to show. And we're creating this title piece. At the end of the day, it's exactly the same as what we did with users, like identical to what we did with users. If you want to move on to author, that would be fine. I'm going to actually nest author just to make my life a little bit simpler so it looks a little cleaner. But it's going to be $post, square brackets, _name. And the reason why it's _name is because, remember, we merged users into posts. So now I can access all the user's details just like I can access the author's details or the post details. There, just like so. There's my author. And then the card text, super simple, equals $post, content, like so. So one of the issues we're going to have is that we're posting the content, which is the whole blog post entirely. So imagine going to an archive page where each, like the whole blog post is literally listed in a big row, right? You'd have like 40,000 lines of text. It'd be just ridiculous. We're going to want to change this and truncate it. Truncate means cut a chunk of it off. We're going to want to truncate part of it so that we're only looking at a subset of it, right? So we'll probably truncate it. Now, there's really nice ways to do this, and if you were to look up PHP preview text or something like that in Google, you would get a better, cleaner way of doing this. The best way to do this is to truncate it but keep the last word intact, or at least the last sentence intact, and then do your read more. We're not going to care. We're just going to literally truncate it at character 200 and call it a night. Is what we're going to do. So we're going to do it kind of quick and easy, but I'll show you what's going to happen when we first do this. Just out of curiosity, who's done? Okay. No, there's 3. I won't point at anybody else though. But you drew attention to yourself, so that doesn't count. I'll get an email from Ross. Shane says that you pointed him out yet. He's here in my office and he's very upset. He's a large man crying. All right. Good, Brittany? Cool. Yep. All right. I mean, it's not what we're going to want anyways, because it's literally going to show the whole blog post. Now, mind you, the blog posts that I wrote painstakingly by hand are very small, right? But there's a lot of them. Like, there's so many of them, right? We don't necessarily need to show so much. We don't need all this information. It would make more sense to truncate it off so that we only have a subset of it, right? What would be a better user experience, to be honest, than what WordPress does? It gives you a synopsis block. And synopsis is basically like a summary of your blog in like a few lines, right? And that would be better to post up because the preview should kind of give the user an idea of what it's going to be about, right? So that would be a little cleaner. Either way, we need to cut this post content down. So we're going to wrap this guy in a function called substring, like so, called substring. The first argument to substring is the content you want to truncate. The second argument is the number that you want to start from. So what it does is it basically takes your content and turns it into a string array. So we want to tell it what character number to start from, and think about how arrays work. They all start from 0. So we're going to start from 0, which is basically the beginning of the string. And then the second number is where you want to end. And everything after that point will be truncated off. So I'm going to end at character 200. And then obviously, because it's not the whole blog, I want to be able to point the user off to the show page. So I'm going to give them a second show link that will point them to the show page for that blog where they can go read the rest of the article. And that's going to look like this. So I'm going to add 3 dots at the end of this thing up here. So 3 dots up here. And then down here, I'm going to create a link that's going to say read more. And the href, you can come up here to the H3 and literally copy the code inside there, inside its href, and just paste it in place. And that's it. So you'll get a truncated piece of content that's only 200 characters long, and you have a link to read more of that blog post by clicking that link. So we're basically giving them 2 ways to get there. They can either click the title or they can click the link to get there. They can choose whichever way they want to get there. I'm going to plug my tablet back in. So one other thing we're going to deal with next week is that our blog posts, there's so many in the archive already, and it's a lot of data to go through. Not to mention we're being kind of inefficient because we're loading in every blog we have right now. So there's like 50 blogs. Actually, there's literally 50 blogs. Not only are we loading in 50 blogs, we're also truncating 50 blogs to 200 characters. That data's not gone. It's still sitting there in memory. There's 50 blogs worth of memory being taken up, right? And a user doesn't like to read like that. Users get kind of, I don't know, they're kind of a weird folk. Like they'll scroll to a certain point, get bored, and leave. But they seem to be okay with going to next page. I don't know. That's okay, but scrolling endlessly is not okay. So we're going to scroll for 10 blogs and then let them go to another page. But we'll deal with that next week. That's called pagination, and we're going to create some pagination, but it requires a bit of logic in order for us to figure that out. All right. Everybody done? Anybody not done? Nope. Good. All right. I'm going to go over to the page, hit refresh, and now you'll notice that we have a read more button, and everything has been truncated. But we still have this wonderful endless scroll, right? But I think that's a good point to stop. I mean, we didn't take much of a break tonight. We did manage to get rid of a lot of stuff, though, off our list. Next week, we're going to do pagination and show. I think we don't have a heck of a lot of time left, actually. I think we might have 3 weeks left. What date's today? The 19th? So we have next week, which is the 26th. We have December 3rd. Oh, really? We got 2 weeks. We have next week and the following week to do actual course material. And then the following week after that will be the final, right? Because the final lands on, your final will be the 10th of December, will be the final for you guys. So we have 2 more weeks for course material. So next week, we'll do show and pagination. And then we've got to do create, update, and destroy somehow in one class. We'll try. Yeah. You guys are done the 13th. Yeah. Don't take my word for it. I goof up the dates all the time. Last day of class for 14 weeks is December 13th. Yeah. And then you are back January 6th. Yeah. So you get 3 weeks. Yeah. Which is not too bad. Right. You're heading into co-op anyways. So you're likely not going to start your co-op on January 6th. You'll likely start your co-op before that point. But oh, you are starting yours on the 6th? Are you doing an E co-op or are you working for somebody? Oh, okay. Yeah. I'll have to ask you how that goes.